Welcome to this module on linking oral language, reading and writing using the teaching and learning cycle for reception to Year 3 students. This is an Orbis presentation in conjunction with the University of Melbourne.
Welcome to this module for literacy learning for reception to Year 3. In this module, we've used theoretical justifications to authentically link the literate modes of oral language, reading and writing. We've used the teaching and learning cycle by Derewianka Jones to demonstrate the use of a picture storybook, Wombat Stew. Each stage of Derewianka Jones's cycle, building the context of the field, supported reading, modelling or deconstruction, joint construction, and independent use of the genre, includes student work samples, student voice recordings, and ways to assess students' writing. We encourage you to think about other texts that you could use in your own classroom context and ways that you could move through the teaching and learning cycle to provide a rich and authentic literacy experience.
This slide summarises the content of this module. Please read it through. In this presentation, Bree and I will use an example of a mentor text, Wombat Stew. We will show you how you can use this text in conjunction with the teaching and learning cycle to support the integration of speaking and listening, reading and writing, to create an authentic unit of work to support the literacy development of your students. Through this presentation, we propose the use of much-loved picture storybooks as an authentic learning resource. Being read to, students are exposed to rich written language and modelled reading behaviours. By talking about the book and recycling the vocabulary, students have the opportunity to extend their oral language. And by using the language forms and text types as supportive models for their own writing, students can see the real link between the literate modes. Please watch the video clip by Professor Myhill as she talks about the importance of oral language as the foundation stone for all learning. In this module, we have chosen to use the picture storybook Wombat Stew as the mentor text to teach procedural and narrative writing. We have included a link to Wombat Stew being read here. It would be even better, though, if the chosen text is read by you as the teacher, either in person or via a digital platform. As teachers, we make pedagogic decisions that will impact our students. For this reason, we provide the research which argues for the importance of drawing on the reciprocity of skills between the modes, and therefore for the importance of planning units of work which integrate the modes. What we learn about in reading can assist us as writers. Likewise, what we talk about and orally rehearse serves to clarify our ideas and make us more competent at comprehending and writing. Clay argued that in the early years of reading and writing development, this is especially important, and we as teachers need to make the explicit links between the modes. Krashen also agrees with Clay and makes the important argument that students need to read every day. He argues through reading, new vocabulary is encountered in context. The orthographic representations of new and recycled words are linked with the context and also assist with spelling. And a range of language structures and features encountered in texts can in turn help with writing. The teaching and learning cycle is a framework to provide scaffolding for students drawing on the three modes, speaking and listening, reading and writing. The responsibility starts with the teacher and is gradually released from the teacher to the student via carefully scaffolded steps. These steps equip students with the tools and confidence to construct their own texts. At the conclusion of this module, you will find a list of references cited through this presentation. We recommend Derewianka Jones 216 as a useful resource for planning literacy units integrating the three modes and supporting authentic links across curriculum fields. For each stage of the teaching and learning cycle, we will provide some practical teaching ideas. Please watch this video clip of a foundation teacher and her class using the teaching and learning cycle. In this clip, the teacher talks about her planning and teaching of the writing of information reports to support the integrated content on farm animals. This unit of work, undertaken by this class, occurred over a period of weeks. So the content in this video needs to be viewed in light of the sequential and scaffolded steps by the teacher and her students, guided by the teaching and learning cycle framework. The first stage of the teaching and learning cycle is building the field of knowledge about a particular topic or concept. What is important to this stage is the focus on oral language, where students, through lots of interactive activities, develop a shared vocabulary about the given topic. Through experiences such as partner activities, brainstorming, listening to guest speakers, excursions and in-house experiences, reading and viewing texts and discussing them, the introduction of new vocabulary and the student's ability to articulate their learning of these new concepts is facilitated. In Wombat Stew, the field can be built by using non-fiction texts, listening to podcasts, attending excursions to the zoo or animal sanctuary, and inviting volunteer wildlife carers to talk about Australian animals, including wombats. This slide is an example of an in-house experience where students were asked to look for ingredients they would like to include in an animal stew. Please use the speaker icon to listen to Lucy, a Year 1 student, describe the ingredients for her stew.
Long, brown, barky sticks, deep, wet and wavy water, smooth, round and hard acorns, pretty, shiny and happy flowers.
Great job, thank you.
To assist building the field of knowledge about a topic, supportive reading is undertaken. Here, the teacher as the expert provides a range of texts to support building field knowledge. If the focus is on narrative writing, such as in Wombat Stew, the teacher would lead the reading of many examples of narratives. During the reading, the teacher would focus on text elements, such as descriptions of characters and setting, or how the author creates a complication and a resolution. Vocabulary linked to the field of study is identified, and students are given opportunities to engage with new words and their meanings. Students during this time are encouraged to use and recycle the language of texts. If you were teaching narratives, for example, this might mean encouraging students to retell the shared narrative, reenact parts of the narrative, or join in the repetitive refrains, such as in Wombat Stew and the Dingo's Wombat Stew chant. Read here some examples of supported reading activities if the chosen genre is procedural text. In the modelling or deconstructing stage of the cycle, aspects of the text are modelled and then deconstructed with the students. Language features are examined, and in the mentor text Wombat Stew, these elements include rhyme and repetition and alliteration, which promote phonological awareness. Additionally, the structure of a narrative can be identified, including the complication and resolution. In Wombat Stew, for example, a discussion on the very short orientation in this text could be undertaken, including an investigation of how the author described the characters and setting. Here are some language features that could be deconstructed in Wombat Stew to support the writing of a narrative. Examples of action verbs and saying verbs could be identified and examined. Word clines could be made with students. Word clines are a list of synonyms for a given word, such as said or walked. When using with students, you could ask them to order the synonyms from the weakest similarity to the strongest, or from one extreme to another, for example, synonyms that would range from walking to running. In addition, sentence structure can be examined to view the language choices authors make, such as the use of noun or verb groups to create description, or the use of circumstances to give the reader more detail. To deconstruct the language features of a procedural text, you as the teacher might focus on the action verbs included in the imperative steps, or you might look at structural features of procedural texts such as goals, materials or ingredients, and method. Moreover, you might focus on visual features such as labelled diagrams or the use of photos or illustrations to support each step. Joint construction of text requires the teacher to share the writing process with either the whole class, small group, or on a one-to-one basis with an individual student. Through this process, the teacher leads students to engage with writing a section of text. In the example on this slide, it might be by asking students to experiment with a sentence, by changing some of the elements, such as the circumstances, or rewriting the noun or verb group to create an altered description of a character. Additionally, in the case of teaching narrative writing, you may ask students to discuss alternate endings to a narrative and then jointly construct one of those. Teaching procedural writing through joint construction may involve creating a labelled diagram with students or creating a series of steps to a method modelled on examples from the mentor text. Action verbs could be highlighted and steps could be written together in the imperative. By providing significant time building the field of knowledge with students, encouraging the learning of and the recycling of vocabulary of the topic, examining the features and structures of a text type, and writing segments of a text together, students are well placed and have been highly scaffolded to write their own text in a specific genre. The stages of the teaching and learning cycle can go forwards and backwards as many times as required to reaffirm and revisit concepts to ensure students are confident with constructing their own text independently. The teaching and learning cycle can be used to teach a wide range of curriculum content through the building of the field. It is a useful framework for integrating the teaching of English with other areas of the Australian curriculum, such as science, humanities and social sciences, the arts and technologies. In these days of crowded curriculum, the teaching and learning cycle supports the integration not only of speaking and listening, reading and writing, but also provides a framework for making links across the curriculum and for creating a purpose for reading and writing. Here are some examples of rich Australian literature that might be applicable for building the field of knowledge to support a unit of work on narratives and Australian animals. The use of non-fiction texts are an important inclusion in all R2-3 classrooms and need to be planned for and taught. Podcasts, websites and video clips are useful text to supplement the printed form. This slide shows another example of how you might teach a different text type. This example is of a recount, with the same topic knowledge as discussed in previous slides. Included is a Year 1 student's innovation on this text and the reading of their flowchart.
Diary of a Kidna. Monday. Discovered hole in soup. Tuesday. Slept. Wednesday. Ate grass. Thursday. Dug a hole.
Daffern and Mackenzie argue, along with many others, for the importance of providing feedback to students on their writing. In order to provide a balance of feedback, they argue for assessing both the authorial aspects of writing, that is, the craft of writing, the text structures, grammar, sentence use, and the vocabulary choices used by writers. Additionally, of equal importance are the secretarial aspects of writing, such as spelling, punctuation, and handwriting. However, Daffern and Mackenzie note that some teachers tend to focus their attention on the secretarial aspects of writing and neglect or downplay the importance of the authorial aspects. Therefore, they argue for the importance of creating a balance between all of these elements to ensure all aspects of writing require instructional attention. Spelling forms one of the secretarial aspects of writing. O'Donoghue argues that student writing samples can provide one legitimate source of spelling for assessment purposes. Through a diagnosis of spelling errors in a writing sample, a teacher can monitor student spelling progress and target the teaching of spelling skills to address the errors. Most importantly, O'Donoghue makes the salient point that teachers should purposely plan and teach all 4 of the spelling skills. To read more about Adonno's ideas on spelling, please read her chapter on spelling, which you will find in the additional reading for this module. Adonno suggests a teacher look at each spelling error and use a spelling diagnostic framework such as the one that you can see on your slide. She suggests a teacher look at a spelling error and ask, does the student primarily use phonological knowledge, that is, write the word based on sounding it out? Do they recall a word using orthographic knowledge, drawing on their visual memory of letter patterns or spelling rules? Do they use morphological knowledge, being able to break a word into its base, recognise suffixes and prefixes, and the addition of smaller morphemes to make meaning, such as adding s for plurals? Or do they draw on etymological knowledge, knowing that word parts can be borrowed from other languages and can influence the spelling combinations in words? Or do they use a combination of all of these? Please take some time to analyse the sample errors by our Year 1 student on this slide. To support the content of this module, there are several web-based resources for you to visit, which will provide more information on the teaching and learning cycle and how you can support EALD students using it. The last resource has several integrated units of work suitable for ARDA 3 students, which you may be able to use or adapt for your own context. We also have some suggested readings to assist your knowledge of the elements within the teaching and learning cycle. We have included these readings with this module. You will find 4 of these are separate downloadable readings, and another 2 can be accessed via the hyperlink provided on this slide. We recommend you take the time to read them and reflect on their content in conjunction with this presentation. Thank you for your engagement with this presentation. We recommend you partake with the suggested tasks that accompany the module to further your understandings of the concepts discussed here.